we have two coupes, one of which is the Doyle Gamble three-window. It's been chopped. It's mean looking. It's got an injected Chevrolet motor, maybe the best chop ever done on a three-window coupe. It's owned by Bruce Meyer from Beverly Hills, who has a large collection of hot rods, and it's been restored to look the way it did when it was in Hot Rod magazine. The second coupe is the Lloyd Bacon Car, and I should tell you the hot rods are always named after the guy that built them, not the guy who owns them. Usually it's the first fellow. And the Lloyd Bacon Car hasn't been seen in 50 years. It was on the cover of Hot Rod. It runs a four-car DeSoto Hemi. It's pictured in the past. It's kind of a dark maroon color with two bathing beauties on the cover of Hot Rod. It was a drag race car, it was a show car, and a street car. We have several competition roadsters, including the Berardini brothers 404 Junior. The Berardinis, and Pat Berardini will be at the show near the car, and he's a great interview. They were virtually undefeated for 5 years in drag racing with this car. It had a 314-inch flathead with a special 5/8 stroker crank, and not only quick reactions, but it was a powerful car, and it's been restored by Roger Morrison. Typical of some of our hot rod owners, Roger is a Silver Ghost guy. He has a number of classic cars, and he's got several hot rods, including the 404 Junior. Originally, that car was pinstriped by Von Dutch. Unfortunately, now it's been repainted, beautifully done, restored by David Krause. It's a cool car to see. We have, I always wondered in my wildest dreams would I ever see a flamed, blown, big block, mean Chevrolet on the ground at Pebble Beach, and you're going to see one tomorrow. It's the Tom McMullen Roadster, and when Tom built it, he tried to do, I don't want to say cliche, but he tried to build in every element you could possibly want for an exciting car. And he street drove it, he raced it at Bonneville, and he drag raced it. It was his everyday driver, and there's a famous picture of him being stopped by a California highway patrolman as he has deployed the drag chute on the back of his car somewhere in Orange County. So Tom passed away a number of years ago, unfortunately, but his car will be here. Restored by Roy Brizio, who restored the Jack Calori custom coupe class winning car a few years ago. We're going to have the Pete Henderson Roadster, and although the car unfortunately was damaged in transit a little bit, the guys who owned it, the Longleys, Chuck and Mike, have done some quick repairs and touch-up. It will be on the field. Pete Henderson was 17 years old in 1944, and he had the fastest car in Pasadena. There was a fellow, apparently, who used to go from bar to bar looking at the parking lots and seeing cars that maybe were pretty quick and would walk in and say, who owns that Roadster? Who owns that coupe? His point was that he had a quarter horse, and he would bet that the horse over the first 50 yards could be anybody's hot car. Naturally, there were a lot of takers, and a lot of people lost to the horse. In fact, no one had beaten the horse. One of the reasons was this guy had like a secret signal, and when the horse was looking at him, he would raise his arm, and almost always the horse got the jump. Pete Henderson, who will be here on Sunday, said to me a couple of years ago, I was too dumb to know, I was too dumb to be scared and to know that I couldn't do this. Several hundred people showed up, and there are photos of this event when Pete and the horse went off together, and he beat the horse. His car was really quick, and no one ever saw the horse or its owner again. And that car will be on the field. The Walker Morrison Roadster, which was built in Whittier, California, is a special. Means a lot to me because when I was building my hot rod, I called Walker Morrison. This is a number of years ago. He was still alive, he was in his 80s, and he hesitated for a moment and he said, you're calling me from Virginia about a car that I sold in 1951 and you want me to tell you about it? And I said, well, if you could. And a couple of seconds later, he rattled off chapter and verse, every single detail on that car. I've never seen it, but as luck would have it, and I unabashedly used a few of those elements on my car. First year that I brought my car in 1999 to the Los Angeles Roadster Show, an older man was looking at it, staring at it, walking around. Finally, I walked up to him and I said, can I help you? And he said, this is a Walker Morrison car, isn't it? I said, well, I respected that car a lot, and I talked to Morrison. Could you, do you know something about that car? He said, well, I was Moe's best man, and I did a lot of work on it. And I said, well, we only have pictures of the front and the side. How'd I do? He said, really good. I wanted to know him a little better. I wrote his phone number down. And 3 years ago, I had a phone call from Jack Sternum in St. Louis, who said, I hear you know something about the Walker Morrison car. I said, I have a little information. He said, I really need some details. I found it. We found it out near Denver, and it's the car, it's got the paper trail. What do I do? I said, here's a phone number. So this car is going to be seen for the first time in 50 plus years, restored perfectly by a guy who knows how to do hot rods with the help of the man who built the car. Paul Fitzgerald's 32 Ford Roadster is from Massachusetts. Paul is a guy who was a genius in high school, built this car when he was 16 and 17, then kept improving it. Chevrolet motor, independent front suspension, a 37 Ford truck grill. I first saw that car when I was 16, and we all looked at it and said, wow. And this is Massachusetts, not California. Paul lost track of the car, has managed to gather most of the pieces. You'll see it on the lawn on Sunday. It's the first time in, again, half a century that anyone has seen this car. We have the Carl Stone Rolling Stone car, a very successful drag racer that Carl, unfortunately, is not with us, but the car was restored by Jason Smith in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And Steve Cormandy, the owner, is a perfectionist, so I look to see a great car. And finally, the 1932 Ford of Mitchell Rosansky, which was built by Chuck Adams in 1946. Mitchell has owned it over 50 years. He's restored it to look the way it was when he drag raced it at Caddo Mills, and Mitchell will be there. So we're bringing together a great group of hot rods, in many cases with the people who either built them or drove them. I encourage you to get out and talk to these guys, meet them, and listen to these cars. They are bitchin'. Thanks.